How much muscle is possible to build naturally? Let's get into this video.
In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how I'm definitely not the best natural bodybuilder in the world, but I did win a gold medal at Canadian Natural Bodybuilding Nationals, so I'll use myself as an example of a natural bodybuilder. I've been training without steroids for about 15 years.
When it says without, does it mean that he transitioned over? Just a question.
I weigh 160 pounds when I'm lean and 180 pounds when I'm bulked at 5'5" tall. Like most people, I put on most of my muscle in my first 5 years of lifting.
Damn, he's very short.
My parents were bodybuilders, so I trained pretty hard from the start. In my first 5 years, I gained around 20 pounds of muscle. Over the next 5 years, I put on a little more muscle, but not as much, only another 5 pounds or so. And the next 5 years after that, it was even less, maybe 1 or 2 pounds. Add it all up, and that's 27 pounds or 12 kilos of muscle that I've built in total. And while some people will build more, some people will build less, every natural lifter doing most things right will experience a similar growth curve with faster growth at the beginning and slower growth as they approach their so-called natural genetic ceiling.
Okay. Wow. So it took 27 pounds in 15 years. I'm trying to think. So right now I'm currently between 205 and 210. I so wish I documented how much I gained, but I do know for sure it's not that much. I would say maybe 20 pounds over the last, I started when I was 16. I'm going to be 32 very soon. So in 16 years, I would say around 20 that I gained of solid muscle, So not too much.
Research backs this up. Studies show that men tend to max out their natural potential after gaining 20 to 40 pounds or 9 to 18 kilos of muscle mass.
Damn, 20 pounds? Okay, for me to gain 20 more pounds of muscle, that would be insane. That's not happening, especially naturally.
Women tend to max out their natural potential of 12 to 24 pounds of muscle. And while I think it is possible to gradually nudge that ceiling up with advanced training and diet strategies, that nudging will be marginal. Now, of course, in order to max out your natural potential, you need to do things consistently well with your training and diet. This means that you train hard, regularly approaching failure, you maintain consistent technique, you do enough training volume to 15 sets per muscle per week is a good ballpark, you do a variety of exercises, and you aim to add some weight or some reps to those exercises over time. On the diet side of things, you need to eat enough calories, ideally being in a moderate caloric surplus for at least half your lifting time, and you need to eat enough protein, ideally eating at least 0.7 grams of protein per pound of body weight, or 1.6 grams per kilo. If you do all...
So I've stayed around 1 gram per pound of body weight, and I definitely agree with the slight calorie surplus one. That's because if you gain weight too quickly, you also gain a lot of fat. So if you can do it in a way that is gradual, you will not gain as much fat with the muscle. Slower is always going to be better anyways. You need to give yourself that time to gain muscle properly. Some people like to do dirty bulking, but personally, I'm not a fan of that because when you get the fat, you're increasing your fat cells, right? Which basically are cells that split, but when you cut, those cells are still present in your body, which makes it easier to gain weight in the future. So for me, I stay away from dirty bulking for that reason. So a slight calorie surplus is definitely something I agree with and something that I do. So anyways, let's get back.
All of this for 5 to 10 years, you'll almost certainly gain 20 to 40 pounds of muscle and come pretty close to maximizing your natural. And here are a couple examples of natural bodybuilders that I think have either reached or are very close to reaching their peak natural development. Wow. This is Alex Leonidas, a fellow YouTuber who put on roughly 40 pounds of muscle in 13 years of lifting.
Damn. So for all the people that think I'm on steroids, right? This guy gained 40 pounds of muscle in 13 years. That is something that I didn't achieve. I would say at the most, if I were to go back and document how much, I would say at the most 40 pounds. That is, you need to do things correctly from the beginning, right? I would say the first 3 to 5 years, I didn't know what I was doing. I started becoming more conscious on what I was eating, technique and stuff like that after that 5 years. So there's many things that have to be taken into consideration to gain that much in such a short amount of time. That's crazy. 40 pounds, crazy. Even gaining 2 pounds for the year is crazy.
5'6" tall. He's 120 pounds in the before photo and 160 pounds in the after photo at a similar body fat percentage. He's also done several extended bulks where he's got as high as 200 pounds at around 20% body fat. So it wasn't like those 40 pounds went on completely lean without ever gaining any body fat. And I've heard Alex argue that you need to spend some time in a surplus and at a slightly higher body fat to maximize your natural muscular potential. As a taller example, this is Jeffrey Verity Schofield, another fellow YouTuber, who put on roughly 43 pounds of muscle across 10 years of lifting at 6 feet tall. He's
20
150
years.
pounds in the before photo and 193 pounds in the after photo at a
Wow.
similar body fat percentage.
Okay.
Once again, it's worth mentioning that Jeff did a series of bulks and cuts, getting up to 24 pounds at his peak bulk weight before cutting down to 193. Now, just in case there are a few people who think these examples aren't actually natural and we're secretly taking steroids to advance our fitness careers, let's consider a few examples of bodybuilders from the pre-steroid era. Anabolic steroids weren't isolated and synthesized until the early 1930s and weren't made injectable until 1935. So any bodybuilder prior to that date couldn't have been using them. And here are some examples of impressive bodybuilders from that era who had to be natural as a matter of historical fact. There were impressive strong men and strong women from the 1920s and earlier displaying incredible muscularity and leanness. There were even some bodybuilders from the 1800s rocking amazing all-natural physiques. But of course, both training and nutrition methods have improved a lot in the last 100 years, and there are more people into bodybuilding these days, so it's extremely unlikely that these pre-steroid era bodybuilders represent the pinnacle of what's possible naturally. The best modern natural bodybuilders achieve even better development, but given the availability of steroids today, there will always be some skepticism around their true natty status.
Yeah. My thing is, if you're doing it, just be honest about it. Don't lie to people and give them false hopes on what is achievable. I know I achieved what I achieved naturally. I know it took work. There's a lot of mistakes. I believe if I had to go back in time and redo those first 5 years, I definitely would, knowing what I know now. But obviously, everyone will say that. But I know for sure what I've done it as honestly as possible. And I can tell you right now, steroids, performance enhancement, is not something I thought about from an ego standpoint, right? I want to know that I did it my own way, not the way people advertise and endorse, because it's really a thing that's praised. It's praised.
Just you, building your app on base 40. Okay, so what do steroids add? Well, let's start with the science. This is one of the most famous studies on anabolic steroids by Boston and colleagues from 1996. You may have seen it before. They split 43 subjects into one of 4 groups. Group 1 didn't train or take steroids. They didn't do anything. Group 2 trained naturally without taking steroids. Group 3 trained enhanced. They did take steroids. And Group 4 did not train but still took steroids. So there was a natural group that didn't train, a natural group that did train, an enhanced group that did train, and an enhanced group that didn't train. After 10 weeks, these were the findings. The group that didn't train or take steroids, unsurprisingly, gained only a negligible amount of muscle mass. Nothing significant. The group that trained naturally gained 4.4 pounds of muscle in 10 weeks. Not bad at all. But here's what happened to the group
4.4 pounds? How's that possible? Beginner gains, for sure. Beginner gains.
They added 13.4 pounds of muscle on average. That's more than 3 times the amount of muscle gained by simply injecting 600 milligrams of testosterone per week.
Damn,
everything else was the same. But that's not the craziest part. The group that took steroids and did not even train, they gained, 7 pounds of muscle in 10 weeks.
What? Damn. Honestly, if you see this video and you're a new lifter, it would influence you into wanting to try it. If I have kids and people I want to protect from ever doing this, I will make sure this information does not get to them. Because when you're young, you don't quite know anything yet. You don't quite know what your body is capable of. You don't know your peak. The most dangerous thing you can have is information like this. I would keep this away for sure. Because if I had known this, it would get my mindset in that direction. I thank God I didn't really know anything about steroids when I started. So when I saw bodybuilders that achieved the physique that they achieved, I thought it was possible to just share work ethic. So I'm glad. That kind of information to the wrong person, it would influence them to go that side, the dark side, for sure.
That's more than 1.5 times the muscle gained by the natural training group without even training.
That's crazy.
Dosing, though. They injected 600 milligrams of testosterone per week, which got me wondering if that'd be considered a high dose or a low dose by today's bodybuilding standards. To help me answer this question, I spoke with an anonymous anabolics expert about how much steroids people actually take. In the most famous studies on this, they give people 600 milligrams of testosterone. Would you consider that a high dose, moderate dose, or low dose?
It depends on the context of the individual. I would say for an entry-level enhanced user, it would be high. At 100 milligrams, you're typically looking at what is representative of therapeutic hormone replacement. As you get to 150 to 200 milligrams per week, you're looking at what is more representative of, like some people call it sports TRT.
Honestly, I'm not a fan of TRT either. TRT is not natural, okay? People that are doing that and claiming that they're natural, they're not. It's not natural. Supplements, okay? Protein powder, creatine, those are natural. But once you go the TRT route, it's still enhanced. You're just saying. People are offended by me saying that, but it is what it is.
Like the fitness industry TRT levels where you are pushing a borderline super physiologic free test level perpetually, even though your total T looks normal on paper. As you get to 300 plus, you're in enhanced territory now. You were already enhanced right before that. But
Thank you for saying that.
To 600, that's entry level bodybuilder cycle territory, I would say. And then to represent what could be seen at a professional level in the very competitive ranks, you see upwards of, at minimum, oftentimes 1,000 milligrams a week, but as high as 4,000 to 5,000.
That's crazy, man.
Per week.
When you
Want to produce
Jesus,
pro-level
man.
electronic music?
It's just not
Imagine
worth
if
it.
You could finish clean professional tracks in any genre.
Per week. You've heard of people doing that?
I've seen it.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And honestly, if you're not a professional seeking this for your career or you have aspirations in that direction, why are you doing it? Why? You don't know what you're capable of naturally. It will take time, at least 20 years. I'm going to reach my 20-year point in the next 4 to 5 years. So I believe that would be my peak. I don't know how much more I can gain with what I have right now, but I can improve it in some ways. But people are not willing to wait. People don't have patience anymore. They just want it now. What's the point? If you're not going to be a professional, why are you doing it? You need to ask yourself that question.
So the 600 milligrams used in that study would be considered a high dose by TRT standards, but is more on the moderate to low end compared to what many high-level competitive bodybuilders take. And it turns out that dosing matters a lot. In 2001, the same research group did a follow-up study to see how much muscle mass changes with different doses of steroids. This time, 61 subjects were given 5 different doses of testosterone. They injected either 25, 50, 125, 300, or 600 milligrams per week for 20 weeks. And this is how much muscle they gained. The lowest dose added just under 1 pound of muscle, and the amount of muscle gained increased right alongside the steroid dosage, with the group taking the biggest dose, adding just about 20 pounds of muscle in 20 weeks. That's 1 pound of muscle a week.
What? Oh my god. 1 pound muscle per week? Jesus. So you can gain like 52 in a year. That is scary. That is scary. If I gain 2 pounds of muscle this year, I think that's a successful year. Honestly, I believe it's a successful year if you build 1 pound of muscle. But people are building 1 pound of muscle per week. Just crazy. Another thing people don't mention is how expensive this would be to afford this. Not worth it.
Average. This isn't the highest responder. This is that. Think about that. I might put on 1 pound of muscle in the next year if I'm a late stage natural. These guys
Per week.
by taking 600 milligrams of test.
Average.
Oh, I guess I should also mention, they didn't lift weights in this stuff. 0 lifting. They just took steroids.
Oh my
That's how much of a
god.
difference they can make. But again, many IFBB bodybuilders wouldn't even consider 600 milligrams a high dose. My anonymous source told me that he knows competitive bodybuilders that take 5 to 10 times that amount. So let's take a break from the studies and have a look at what steroids actually do in the wild. For this, I want to look at 2 examples, Shawn Clarida and Chris Bumstead. Shawn Clarida is the reigning 212 Mr. Olympia champion, but not many people know that before he began his IFBB pro career, he was a world-class natural bodybuilder. In fact, he reached the pinnacle of what's possible naturally before ever enhancing, something I strongly respect. As a natural competitor at the WMBF Natural Bodybuilding Worlds, the most stringently drug-tested event in the world, Shawn weighed 130 pounds or 59 kilos on stage. We can assume he was maxing out his training and nutrition at this time because, come on, here he is repping 900 pounds on the leg press, and here he is training his arms from the same year. This guy's always trained super hard. So based on some rough math and what I could find online, it looks like he added something around 20 pounds naturally, going from 110 pounds to 130 pounds.
And it looks great. Don't need, man. That's why I keep saying, like, if your aspirations is not to be a bodybuilder, I would stay away. I'll stay away. He looked great before. Man, I wonder how his heart is doing. All that muscle around your heart can't be good.
At 5 foot 2 inches tall. Then, after reaching the pinnacle of the sport naturally, he started enhancing and added, wait for it, another 60 pounds to his physique. That's 3 times the amount of muscle that he built naturally. Chris Bumstead is the reigning Mr. Olympia Classic Physique Champion and is without a doubt one of the greatest classic bodybuilders of all time. Chris started lifting at the age of 14 when he weighed 170 pounds or 70.
Damn. So at 14 years old, how much did that weigh? I think I may have been like 135-ish, something like that. 135-ish.
7 kilos at 6 foot 1 inches tall. Over the next 5 years of Natty training, he grew to be 225 pounds or 102 kilos by the time he was 19.
That's crazy. So he weighed more at 19 than I do right now. That's insane.
55-pound increase in body weight. Of course, some people will argue that Chris wasn't actually Natty in this after image, but I believe he was. Here's what he looked like at 7. He's already bigger than most natural lifters that I know, and we also have screenshots of the exact day when his coach said that he started his first cycle, and this image was taken before that day. So it seems most likely to me that he was natural here. He may have the best genetics on the planet, but somebody has to be the best by definition. Alright, so Chris added 55 pounds of muscle naturally.
Okay.
After enhancing, he now weighs 64 pounds.
So when I gave you the numbers, 30 pounds, pure muscle, right? Because I'm not taking into account water, my bone density and all that stuff and fat. I'm only giving you the number based on lean muscle mass, right? So 55 of those pounds, is it all lean muscle mass? I don't know. It could maybe be 40 pounds he gained, right? But that's what I put into context when I give that number. I wish there was an accurate way of giving that number, but I don't want to give people the wrong information and wrong hopes.
Off season, at what looks like a similar body fat to these, so an extra 40 pounds added. In this case, it does look like Chris built most of his muscle naturally. Damn impressive. That leads me to think that Sebum probably isn't taking a huge amount of gear and could almost certainly grow a whole lot more if he wanted to by simply upping the dose. Not that I'm suggesting he do that. But I wanted to include this example because I think it speaks to the power of genetics. When we look at different people's results from natural lifting, there's a broad range of responses. Some people gain very little muscle, others gain a massive amount of muscle, with most people landing somewhere in the middle. Sebum would be way over here, by the way.
Wow.
And just like there are genetic differences in how you respond to natural training, there are also genetic differences in how you respond to anabolics. For example, in that 2001 study, the worst responding subject added 9 pounds of muscle in 20 weeks, while the best responding subject added 31 pounds of muscle in 20 weeks without lifting. This guy gained more muscle in 5 months of juicing than I did in 15 years.
That's crazy.
In this video, I'm going to be making
That's
a
crazy.
3D game in just 1 hour, but all the 3D...
So based on all this evidence, steroids can easily double or even triple your gains, depending on your genetics and how much you take. Again, for natural lifters, you're looking at 20 to 40 pounds of muscle gain at a more moderate dose.
I think that's generous. 20 to 40 pounds is it's a good range. Your peak will be 40 pounds. That's accurate. That's accurate. Because I remember around the time I started and now it's about a 30-40 pound difference. So that makes sense, right? Whether if it's in the high 20s, low 30s, I wish there was a way I can measure it, which is why I said I wish I documented. But that's a good natural number. And enhanced 80 pounds, you would have muscles in your face, for goodness sakes.
Of steroids, most people are probably looking at another 20 to 40 pounds. And then if you're willing to really crank the dose, people with good genetics could certainly add another 20 to 40 pounds or more on top of that. But while steroids do likely have the biggest potential impact on how much muscle you gain, they also have the biggest potential for downsides. Here's a list of steroid side effects from the National Institute of Health. The heart effects alone should give us pause. There's a well-established higher risk.
So high blood pressure, blood clots, heart attack, stroke, artery damage.
Risk of high blood pressure, blood clots, heart attacks, stroke, and artery damage in regular steroid users. And there are often unwanted visual side effects like gyno, balding, acne, abscesses.
Balding, gyno. For the gyno one, some people have it without taking steroids, so I don't really think that's accurate side effect. Some people have it without taking steroids.
And oily looking skin.
Oily looking skin? Really? So if I put oil on my skin, people will start thinking I'm on steroids? Alright.
While it certainly is possible to mitigate some of these side effects by using moderate and controlled dosages with regular hormonal monitoring by a medical doctor, you're still taking a gamble on your health when you decide to enhance. This isn't an anti-steroid video. I think people should be allowed to do whatever they want with their own bodies, as long as they're not hurting others. But I also think it's important that people actually understand what steroids really do, both good and bad. If you're thinking about enhancing, I think it'd be smart to at least max out your natural potential first. This will force...
And honestly, I'm gonna say something different than him. If your aspirations is not to be a professional within an industry that requires you to do that, I don't believe you should go that route. My tracker started following me there. I don't believe you should go that route. I believe you should do it naturally if your goal is not to go into an industry that requires you to do that. That's my take. You can do whatever you want to do, but that's my take.
You to understand your body and force you to learn how to pull the training and nutrition levers most effectively for your physique. That knowledge will then empower you so that you don't feel like you need anabolics, and it'll give you enough time to really make an informed decision. Natty maxing is usually not possible until at least 10 years of hard, smart, and dedicated training, so it'd be smart to get a decade of lifting under your belt before you even consider juicing, in my opinion. And of course, if your goal is to maximize your health, it'd be smart to stay natural unless a medical professional recommends hormonal treatment. It's also worth mentioning that given what we know about...
And honestly, you start training for health reasons. So why do you need to juice? Honestly, if being a professional in that thing isn't part of your agenda and you're doing it to be healthy, why go the enhanced route if that it has health implications? Honestly, you want to have great looking skin, you want to be attractive, you want to have mobility. So why go that route? Because of social media? You need to think about these things. You need to, because you 10 years from now will thank you for making the decision now.
Steroids and genetics, it just doesn't make sense to judge the value of someone's training advice based on how big they are. For example, it's fairly common for people to point to enhanced bodybuilders, note how much bigger they are than other lifters, and use that to imply that their training methods must be better. Of course, they're going to be bigger if they're on steroids, especially if they also have good genetics. That doesn't mean that their training methods are better. It doesn't mean that their training methods are worse either. It's just not a valid comparison. We should determine whether or not someone has good training advice based on sound reasoning. Reasoning can come from scientific evidence or anecdotal evidence or just years of experience, but we need to evaluate that evidence based on its own merits, not based on the size of the person giving it.
Thank you. Thank you. That's good advice. Definitely for the experience part. You need to do it for a long period of time to qualify to give advice. And you need to give advice with context. Because somebody that's enhanced has the advantage. They do. They do. And you cannot think that you just copy somebody enhanced and have the same results. You need to do it properly for a long period for the right reasons. Because again, if you're doing it because somebody told you about it, it will get you bigger, it will make you look better on social media, that's not really a good motive. For finances to support yourself and your family, that's different. Because those are career aspirations, which require you to do certain things within those industries. Cool. But if that's not the reason, like if it's for health and longevity, I advise against it. I do. I stand on that. I stand on it. Even though people don't believe me, I stand on it.
Anyway, I thought this was a fascinating subject to dig into, and I'm curious if you guys are surprised by how much of a difference steroids actually make, or if that lines up with what you...
I'm surprised, to be honest, and I'm glad I didn't know this information for the last, how many years have I been lifting? It will be 16 soon. 16 years. I'm glad, because knowing this information for some people will enable them to think about doing it, which is something I'm so blessed to have avoided. Anyways, thank you so much for reacting with me. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section about this, and may God bless you, and I'll see you next video. Metro Boomin, want some more, nigga.